The phone vibrated as I stood by the window of my 25th floor hotel room, looking down at the bustling streets below. I glanced at the screen. Ethan. A chill ran down my spine. He never called at this hour. A sense of unease crept into my mind, but I still pressed the answer button. We should get a divorce. His voice was cold, firm, without a hint of hesitation. I froze. What? I asked, thinking I had misheard him. I already sold the apartment. You should find another place to stay. This time, I heard every word clearly. A heavy silence stretched between us, broken only by the distant hum of traffic outside the window. I gripped my phone tighter, trying to steady myself. What did you just say? My voice was dry, but I kept it even. Ethan let out a small dismissive laugh. I said I sold the apartment. Haley and I need the money to start our new life. She deserves a bigger place than that tiny box we used to live in. Haley. That name felt like a knife straight to my chest. But I wasn't even surprised. I had suspected it for months. The late meetings, the sudden business trips, the distant looks. The way he flinched whenever I picked up his phone. I had ignored it, convinced myself I was overthinking. But now, he wasn't even bothering to hide it anymore. I took a slow, deep breath, keeping my voice steady. Sounds great. Good luck to both of you. I hung up before Ethan could say another word. My heart pounded in my chest, but not from pain. From anger. Not just at the betrayal, but at his audacity. He actually thought I would crumble. Ethan had always been the kind of man who thrived on control, who manipulated my emotions to keep me in line. He believed I would cry, beg, plead for him to stay, just like before, when I tried to save this marriage. But he forgot one thing. I wasn't the naive girl from 5 years ago. I turned back to the table, picked up my glass of wine and took a sip. In my mind, the puzzle pieces were falling into place, forming a picture that was finally clear. Ethan thought he could cheat me, take everything, and walk away hand in hand with his mistress? He didn't know one crucial detail. That apartment had been in my name for the past 4 months. And Ethan had just made the biggest mistake of his life. I set my wine glass down and stared at my phone screen. My heart was still pounding, but not from fear or heartbreak. It was from the fire burning inside me. Ethan actually thought he could deceive me. He believed that all he had to do was make a decision and I would have no choice but to accept my fate. But he didn't realize. I had seen through him long ago. 4 months ago, when we refinanced the apartment for a lower interest rate, I had quietly transferred ownership to my name. At the time, Ethan hadn't bothered reading the paperwork. He only cared about whether the monthly payments went down. I still remembered that day, watching him idly scroll through his phone as the lawyer placed the documents in front of him. I had gently reminded him. You should read before you sign. Ethan had just chuckled. Lily, I trust you, you always handle these things. He had no idea those words would be his own downfall. I opened my banking app, scrolling through recent transactions. If Ethan really had sold the apartment, the money had to be somewhere. I switched to my email, searching for the mortgage contract the bank had sent me months ago. When I saw the line that read, "Sole owner, Lily Carter," I couldn't help but laugh. He had just sold an apartment he didn't own. Ethan had made a grave mistake, and I wasn't about to let it slide. I dialed Madison, my best friend and attorney. Lily? What's wrong? Madison's voice was calm, but I could hear the concern in it. Ethan just called me, I said, my voice completely steady. He said he sold our apartment. Or at least, he thinks he did. What? Madison went silent for a second before her voice turned sharp. Lily, are you telling me he tried to sell the apartment without knowing it's already in your name? Exactly. And now, I need you to help me bury Ethan. Madison took a deep breath. All right. First, we need to find out who the buyer is. If he's already taken a deposit or the full amount, this isn't just a civil matter anymore. This could be fraud. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. I thought the same. Ethan isn't smart enough to think this through. If you can look up any transactions related to this apartment, we'll have the upper hand. I'll handle it, but Lily, be ready, Ethan won't go down without a fight. I smirked. I don't expect him to. But this time, I won't be the one who loses. I ended the call and stood up, walking over to the large hotel window. The city stretched out before me, glowing under the nightlights. For a brief moment, I thought about everything I had endured in this marriage. The years I had sacrificed, the times I had compromised, the moments I had fought to hold on to something that was never meant to last. But now, things were different. I was no longer the woman desperately trying to save a broken marriage. I was the woman who was going to get justice. Ethan thought he had won. But in reality, the game had just begun. The next morning, as I took a sip of coffee, my phone buzzed with a text from Madison. Confirmed, the apartment was never legally transferred. Ethan scammed the buyer. Call me now. I exhaled, a small smile forming on my lips. I had expected this, but having solid proof in my hands was still satisfying. I hit the call button, and Madison picked up instantly. I checked the property records. There's no approved sale contract in any official system. That means Ethan either attempted an illegal transaction or hasn't completed the paperwork. Either way, the apartment is still yours. What about the buyer? I asked, my voice calm but sharp. I found them. Jake and Olivia Carter, a young couple. They put down a significant deposit, and now they're furious. Looks like Ethan promised them the apartment as soon as the deal went through. I frowned. So, Ethan actually took their money? Not clear on the exact amount yet, but it's likely he's already spent part or all of it. If so, you can sue him for fraud. I pressed my lips together. Ethan thought he was smart, but in reality, he was nothing more than a careless, greedy, and foolish man. I've drafted an official letter to him, stating that the sale of the apartment is invalid. If he doesn't return the money immediately, we will sue him for fraud, Madison continued, her voice sharp. I'm sending the email to Ethan right now, along with a legal notice. Send it. And send it to the buyer as well, I said, my eyes locked on my computer screen. I want them to know exactly who scammed them. Ethan himself. 3 hours later, my phone rang from an unknown number. I picked up and an angry voice boomed on the other end. Is this Lily Carter? Yes, who's calling? This is Jake Carter. Can you explain why my wife and I just received an email from your lawyer saying the apartment we purchased never actually belonged to Ethan? I took a deep breath. I apologize for the inconvenience, but the truth is, Ethan had no right to sell the apartment. He deceived you. I gave him $50,000 as a deposit, Jake snapped. He told us we could move in by the end of the month. And now what? I closed my eyes, feeling the sheer frustration radiating through the phone. I understand your anger, but I am not responsible for Ethan's actions. You'll need to demand your money back from him. We're going to sue him, Jake growled. Thanks for the heads up, but make sure Ethan pays for this. I hung up, a smirk creeping onto my lips. Ethan thought he could get away with this. But now, he wasn't just facing me, he was also dealing with the people he had scammed. I picked up my phone and texted Madison. Ethan won't just have to deal with me. The buyers are demanding their money back. The real battle has just begun. I had just stepped into my apartment, kicked off my shoes and set my bag on the table, when a loud pounding on the door echoed through the space. Ethan. I didn't need to look to know he was outside, his face red with fury. I walked slowly to the door, taking a deep breath before opening it. And just as I expected, Ethan stormed in, his eyes blazing, gripping a crumpled piece of paper in his fist. What the hell is this, Lily? He roared, shoving the letter from Madison in my face. What kind of game are you playing? Your lawyer sent me this, saying I had no right to sell the apartment. What the hell is going on? I crossed my arms, leaning casually against the doorframe, keeping my voice calm. Exactly what it says. You don't own it. Ethan's eyes widened. Don't mess with me. This is our apartment, Lily. We bought it together. I walked over to the coffee table, picking up a folder I had already prepared. Flipping to the most important page, I slid it toward him. "You should read carefully, sole owner Lily Carter." Ethan stared at the paper, his confidence slowly dissolving into confusion. I watched as his jaw clenched, his hands trembling slightly as he scanned the document. "What the hell is this?" he muttered, his voice quieter now. This can't be real." I folded my arms again, raising an eyebrow. "Oh, it's very real. 4 months ago, when we refinanced, you signed the paperwork without reading it. And among those documents was the transfer of ownership solely to me." I tilted my head, my gaze challenging. "Remember that?" Ethan's face turned pale. He blinked rapidly as if trying to recall the moment. But I knew. He never read a single document I put in front of him to sign. After a few seconds of silence, the confusion on his face disappeared, replaced by a new wave of rage. "You manipulative bitch," he roared, throwing the folder onto the table. "You planned this from the start, didn't you?" I raised my brows, my tone still unwavering. "No. But it seems like you were the one planning to scam me." Ethan's fists clenched tightly, his glare piercing through me. "You think you can kick me out? Think again, Lily. This is my home. I have a right to be here." I took a step closer, my voice lowering. "No, Ethan. This is my home. And you have no right to anything here." He let out a bitter laugh, but I saw the tension in his eyes. "If you think I'm just going to walk away, you're delusional." I didn't flinch. "Then try me. But remember, if you don't leave, I can call the police and report you for trespassing." Ethan froze. I could see him calculating, searching for a way out. But this time, he had no moves left. "You'll regret this, Lily," he snarled, stepping back. "You think you've won? You'll never be free of me that easily." I didn't respond. I just stood there, arms crossed, staring at him. My silence was my answer. Ethan turned sharply, shoving the door open so hard it nearly broke off its hinges, then stormed down the hallway. I exhaled slowly, picked up the folder, and neatly placed it back on the table. Ethan thought he could control me. But now he was the one losing control. And I wasn't done yet. 2 days after my confrontation with Ethan, I was sitting in my living room sipping tea, when I heard the sound of a key rattling in the door lock. I had changed the locks the moment Ethan left. Whoever was trying to get in definitely wasn't expecting that. A loud knock followed. I stood up and opened the door. Ethan was standing there. And next to him was Haley. She had her arms crossed, a smug smirk on her lips while Ethan looked at me with a defiant glare. "Lily, let us in," he said, his voice full of confidence. "I'm here to grab my stuff and move in. You knew this was coming." I raised an eyebrow, folding my arms. "Excuse me?" Haley scoffed, tilting her head as she peeked into the apartment. "Not a bad place, but it definitely needs some changes." I felt the fury boiling inside me, but I didn't let it show. I just stood there, watching. "We're moving in," Ethan said as if it was a given. "The apartment is already sold, so we'll be staying here until we find a new place." I laughed, a sharp mocking laugh. Haley frowned, looking at me as if I had lost my mind. "Let me make one thing clear, Ethan," I said, keeping my voice calm. "You cheated on me. You tried to sell my apartment without any right to do so, and now you think I'm going to let you and your mistress live here?" I shook my head, stepping forward. "You have no rights here. This apartment was never yours, and she," I shot a glance at Haley, "has no place in my home." The smirk on Haley's lips vanished. She turned to Ethan, raising an eyebrow. "Ethan, what is she talking about?" He swallowed hard, clearly unprepared to explain. "Lily's just angry." "Don't worry, she can't kick us out." I let out a dry chuckle. "You want to bet?" I turned, reaching for a stack of documents on the table near the door. I had been waiting for this moment. "These are the legal papers proving my sole ownership," I said, holding them up in front of Ethan and Haley. "This apartment belongs entirely to me, and the two of you? Both of you have no right to be here, not even for a second. Haley's face turned pale. Ethan, you told me you sold it. Ethan fumbled, trying to pull her away from me. Haley, let me explain. She yanked her hand from his grasp, her face flushed with anger. You told me the money was already in your account. How the hell did this happen? I folded my arms, watching Ethan's downfall unfold before me. You said you had it under control, Haley nearly shouted. And now what? We have nothing and this apartment isn't even yours. Ethan clenched his fists and turned back to me, his eyes burning with rage. Lily, are you trying to ruin my life? We were together for 5 years. You can't do this to me. I met his gaze, unwavering. No, Ethan. You ruined your own life. I'm just protecting what's mine. I placed the documents back on the table and pulled out another envelope. And this is the divorce petition. Ethan froze, as if I had just punched him in the chest. You're joking, right? He muttered. Lily, we can fix this. No, I cut him off. There's nothing to fix. I'm not the woman you can manipulate anymore, Ethan. You made your choice. Now, I'm making mine. I placed the papers in front of him, along with a pen. Sign them, the sooner the better. Haley crossed her arms and turned away, fuming. I can't believe I wasted my time on you. She shook her head before storming out, without a second glance. Ethan looked as if he had just lost everything. And he had. I crossed my arms and stared at him. You have 2 choices. Sign the papers now, or I'll take you to court, and trust me, Ethan. I won't let you walk away with a single dime. His shoulders slumped, his eyes darkened. For the first time in his life, Ethan had no control over the situation. And I was the one holding all the power. Ethan hesitated, his eyes locked on the papers in front of him. I could see the struggle in his expression, the wounded ego, the realization that his perfect plan had just crumbled. He thought he could walk away from me easily, leaving me broken. But this time, I was the one in control. After a long, tense minute, Ethan exhaled sharply, grabbed the pen, and signed his name. Good, I said, gathering the papers and slipping them back into the envelope. Now you have no reason to be here. Get out. Ethan looked at me, desperation flickering in his eyes. Lily, we had good times together. Can't you forgive me? I let out a quiet laugh, devoid of warmth. You're not sorry for what you did. You're just sorry you got caught. And no, I can't forgive you. You're not my problem anymore. Without another word, I walked to the door, opened it and gestured for him to leave. Out. Ethan hesitated, then finally lowered his head, grabbed his bag, and trudged out. As the door closed behind him, I took a deep breath. For the first time in years, this apartment truly belonged to me. The next day, I started clearing out the remnants of Ethan's existence. His jacket draped over a chair, tossed into the donation bin. The books he bragged about but never read, packed up and thrown away. The wedding photo that once hung in the living room, taken down, shoved into a box, and pushed to the back of the closet. This apartment had once been filled with memories of Ethan, but now, I wanted it to reflect me, not my past. I changed the dull gray curtains to a soft sage green, the color I loved but Ethan had always dismissed as cheap-looking. I placed a cozy armchair by the window, a perfect spot to read in the mornings. I bought a new set of bed linens, not the ones Ethan had picked, but the ones I actually liked. Every small change felt like reclaiming my life, piece by piece. That evening, Madison and Sophia, my 2 closest friends, showed up with a bottle of wine and a bag of takeout. So, he's finally gone? Madison raised an eyebrow as she poured us each a glass. I lifted my glass with a triumphant smile. Completely gone. And I've never felt better. To freedom, Sophia cheered, clinking her glass against mine. I laughed, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. For the first time in years, I could breathe. No more waiting up for Ethan to come home late. No more lies wrapped in fake smiles. No more empty hope that he would change. I had cut every tie, and that was a victory worth celebrating. But Ethan wasn't the type to disappear so easily. Just 3 days after signing the divorce papers, I received the first text. Ethan, Lily, I've been thinking a lot. I'm really sorry, can we talk? I glanced at the message, then locked my phone without replying. The next day, another text. Ethan, I know I messed up, I'll change, just give me one last chance. I tossed my phone onto the table, not bothering to read any further. 2 days later he called. I didn't pick up. Then, another text. Ethan. Lily, are you really going to destroy me? You've already won. What more do you want? I sighed. Ethan didn't understand. I didn't do any of this to get revenge on him. I didn't need him to suffer. I didn't need him to be in pain. I just needed to take back my own life. I deleted all of his messages. From this moment on, Ethan no longer existed in my world. One morning I made myself a cup of coffee and sat down in my new armchair by the window. The city outside was bustling, but inside, I felt an unfamiliar sense of peace. I took a sip of my coffee, looking around the apartment. It was no longer a reminder of my failed marriage. It was my space. A place where I could rebuild my life on my own terms. Ethan once thought that without him I would fall apart. But the truth was, without him, I was finally free. I no longer waited for someone else to dictate my life. I no longer settled for less than what I deserved. I set my cup down, gazed out the window, and smiled. I had won, not because Ethan lost, but because I had reclaimed my. Lily's story is a powerful reminder that true victory isn't about revenge or holding on to what's lost. It's about reclaiming your freedom and control over your own life. She was deceived, manipulated, and almost broken, but instead of crumbling, she took charge and fought for what was rightfully hers. In reality, we all face betrayal and loss at some point, but the key is not to let anyone else define our worth. When you let go of toxic relationships, you truly find happiness and freedom. What do you think about Lily's story? If you were in her situation, how would you handle it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more compelling stories about life, family, and the journey to self-discovery.